Morning, all. We're going to do a news video today as everybody's really anxious, it would seem, to, all right, let's get it rolling. And I'm kind of surprised at just how quickly everybody went, all right. So we heard that from Gary yesterday, and go. Let's just settle down just a little bit on this. Just a bit. Because again, I'm anxious about them to come back, but we're only past the first hurdle of 100 to get there. Now, one hurdle that may be in the way is not to do with negotiations between players and the NHL. Maybe negotiations between the NHL and the federal government here in Canada. Bill Daly has come out and said what I didn't think was going to be a problem, but apparently it is. The 14-day quarantine is a problem. He is saying the 14-day quarantine when you enter Canada is a non-starter. So I kind of sort of get it. Now, and I guess it's a matter of when teams are practicing in their home rinks and then they come into Canada for the actual round robin and everything else. Yeah, it makes sense that they're saying, look, we shouldn't have to quarantine because. And so there's negotiations between the federal government and the NHL going on, and also provincial governments talking to the federal government as well. And this is an exemption waiver and that kind of thing. It gets kind of murky after that. I know I was reading that with Iceland, if you're traveling to Iceland right now, you have to get tested. You have to test negative. If you enter the country and you don't test before entering the country, they'll test you, and then you quarantine for 14 days as well. So, it's maybe it's a situation where players can prove they've been tested negative on entry to Canada, and that would get them a waiver. Like I'm just wondering how this is going to work, and it does kind of feel like when Gary Bettman went to Calgary with the idea of I'm going to get them a new building by kind of sort of roundabout way threatening to move the team. And when people in management in the Calgary Flames organization were saying, well, it'd be a shame if we had to move, but if we don't get a new building, could happen, we could go. And then, of course, they got the new building. So it kind of feels sort of like that, where it's, okay, we're going to negotiate this. We're going to negotiate it. We're going to play some hardball here. We'll see how it works out. Now, what Gary Bettman's also stated is they want to have up to 30,000 tests available for players and personnel. So they're taking the whole testing side of it very seriously. That's a ton. Now, where they're most readily available, that could be important too. So if you are in a state or a province where there's lots of tests available and there's no concerns with that, you're far more likely to end up with National Hockey League games, I would think. I would think that's how that's going to work. So that's something that we're going to be discussing as time goes on, because Vancouver, Edmonton, and Toronto are all in the running. And of course, the Canadian dollar being lower should help the Canadian cities out when it comes to the bidding process. It lowers costs for the National Hockey League, but if they can't play games because all the players are in quarantine, that's going to be a problem as well. So this is still a story that's evolving. Jake Guentzel will likely play. According to Jim Rutherford, Guentzel's still going through the rehab process, and he's saying he's optimistic he's going to play. So we'll see what happens there. Nick Bjugstad will not. So some sort of lower body injury led to surgery for him recently, and so he will not be available. And then it's a matter of will it actually eat into next season as well. So that's a tough break for Bjugstad, but for Pittsburgh, it's still going to be the healthiest they've been all year, with everybody except Bjugstad in the lineup, it would appear. But it's too early to say who will or won't be in the lineup, as far as I'm concerned, because we just don't know what's going to happen between now and August, which is why when I'm on TSN or Sportsnet and I'm looking around on Twitter and I'm seeing all of these qualifying round predictions of which team's going to win who Pittsburgh, Montreal, who's going to win. It's over 2 months from now. At the very soonest, it's in August. Like, we don't need to necessarily do that. So I'm holding off. I hope that doesn't bother people, but I don't think there's a need to preview the qualifying rounds that are 2 months away. Because the way I see it is, if you do a preview right now, but then we go into training camp and something happens, and somebody gets hurt, which happens in training camp, it could change the whole complexion of everything. Maybe you have exhibition games leading up, and exhibition games you see somebody get hurt, or just something unforeseen happens. What if it doesn't happen? So then you're creating all of this content that doesn't actually matter because we don't end up having a qualifying round. So while I'm anxious for things to get back, I'm anxious to see hockey back on the ice. I'm excited about all this. I'm realistic too. I'm realistic that yes, this could fall apart. So I'm waiting until closer to that start date. I don't feel like throwing together previews and getting all okay. We'll have this and this and that. We'll talk about all these eight previews when we just don't know where things are going to be in August. It just feels weird to me, right? Like until they're on the ice and practicing and we see how this system's going to work, I'm not feeling the need to go out and do all of that right yet. I want to wait a little bit. I want to wait till we're closer. Am I right or wrong? Let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about this. Am I being smart and waiting until closer to the actual hockey being played? Or should it be, just do the previews now and then ta-da, there's the previews. And yeah. Anyways, KHL. Speaking of other leagues, the KHL is planning to start their season of September 2nd. And we'll see how that goes for them and whether or not that's going to involve fans in attendance, whether or not it's going to involve teams playing in all of their host cities, all of this wonderful stuff. Because again, this is the stuff we don't know with the National Hockey League for next year. So this is a trial run that we're going to go through this summer, and then we'll see next year, next season, how that goes based on the trial run. If the trial run falls apart, so let's just say worst case scenario. We have some kind of outbreak and the whole thing gets shut down. Next season will be impacted because they wouldn't risk that happening again, where you're going to have 31 teams playing and you're not going to be able to do it in just 2 cities. And so, yeah, that would definitely have a large impact on next season. This is why they have to try to finish this season, other than other financial reasons. You have to do your best now because it's probably not going to be easier later. This is the thing I've been trying to tell people. Next season isn't going to get easier to put on than this year. It'll only be more difficult. So do the easier version, which is playoffs, which is, a week and a half of 24 teams being, isolated, and then you're down to 16, and then you're down to 8, and then you're down to 4, and then you're down to 2, and it gets easier and easier. Whereas during the regular season, it's 6 months of 31 teams? That's going to be virtually impossible. Unless you can find a way to do playoffs this summer. If they can't, then the regular season next year is in jeopardy. So yeah, the KHL planning their new season. I'll be interested to see what they do. Everybody's watching Bundesliga. Everybody's watching NASCAR. Everybody's watching these sports that have started up, UFC, because they want to see how they've made that work and where they fail, where they have challenges, so that the other leagues won't have those challenges. Or in Major League Baseball's case, they're just tripping over themselves and falling on their face. Every day it feels like Major League Baseball is becoming less and less relevant in this discussion. And, when I see some of the arguments that are going on with Major League Baseball and I compare it to what's going on with hockey and football and basketball, I think to myself, okay, guys, so you're arguing over you're not taking any kind of pay cut and you don't trust anybody. Well, what if your pay is 0 because fans decide they're tuning out baseball? They've done it before. Now, in baseball's case, it's usually been greed. In the NHL's case, it's been relevance. And this is why, again, you need to do this summer, because you want to be relevant. You want people to be talking about hockey. Because if you fall out of relevance, especially in the American side of things, where American dollar's worth a heck of a lot more than Canadian, so, you don't want to fall out of relevance. So the NHL having some sort of an announcement, it's going to definitely increase their profile south of the border. Lord knows, I've watched 3 NASCAR races in the last 3 days. I'm to the point where I'm getting ready to start talking in a southern accent and start talking about chassis and opposing the idea of turning right. So, Stanley Cup favorites according to Caesars Sportsbook. Boston, Tampa Bay, and Vegas all share top spot, which means they won't win it. They're 6-1 odds favorites. Usually your odds favorite at the start of the playoffs is not your Stanley Cup champion. And the fact Tampa's a favorite again should give Tampa fans a reason to just facepalm and say, why? And then they go, I touched my face with my hand. And so, yeah, Boston, Tampa Bay, and Vegas. I'm wearing Boston, but I don't think Boston's going to win it this year. Maybe the time off helps them. I don't know. I don't think they do, because it looks like the President's Trophy is theirs, and that's the end of that. Colorado, 8-1 odds for the Colorado Avalanche. 9-1 odds for St. Louis and 11-1 for Washington. I like Washington at 11-1. Those are odds I like. So that's $11 paid back on every $1 paid in. I kind of like those odds. No, I'm not gambling. Not doing it. But people will, and we're at a stage where it feels like they're trying to get things back to some new semblance of normalcy, and we'll see how it goes. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Whether or not you think now we'll see any of the hockey played in Canada. Maybe it just all happens in the States. Maybe they go with Vegas and Columbus, which were rumored to be the front runners all along. Maybe those are going to be the two places we see hockey being played. Maybe it's going to be Minneapolis and Vegas. Maybe Minneapolis and Columbus. You have the 2,000 expansion cities together. We'll see what they do. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Huge, tremendous day on the channel yesterday. Thank you guys for all of that. And of course, as always, when the channel has a great day, I don't take the next day off. I just work that much harder the day after. Thanks again for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.